I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Raffian Stock.
Tune into
Donttap.
Donttap podcast.
Donttap
podcast.
Ron Jones.
Follow me on Twitter.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's like saying the rankings are bullshit.
from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
But this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So, like, the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. No, we're good. See, he's a pro.
Okay, Donttap podcast. We are back. UFC 297. This is going to be the early tap. We're going to try to get some plays out there, some angles, at least something for you to start to look in a direction of. We can be pretty passionate about our picks, about our fades and everything else. Your job is to decipher what you think makes most sense for you. You already have an idea of what you want to pick already. Come in, listen, and the banter. You know, me and Billy are going to be on either side of something today, and we'll be going back and forth for sure. Cheers, brother. All right, let's go into UFC 297. Toronto, we're shooting this a little bit early. I know we're bringing on proper MMA picks. You're an Ontario boy. I know that you're a fan of some of the fighters around here, so you're going to have to watch your bias as well, too. But it's almost impossible not to have a Canadian on your picks this week for this card, because Canada is finally covered almost a full card with fighters. Like, I remember back when I used to go to fights when this first started in Toronto, and there was only like 2 or 3 Canadian fighters on the card at a time. It's amazing to see. So welcome to the fold, proper MMA picks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate you boys for having me on. It's going to be a good chat. Love talking UFC, especially with some fellow Ontario boys, and let's chop it up. I mean, it's like you said, it's almost impossible to not favor the Ontario or Canadian fighters. We got 9 of them, I'm pretty sure, on this UFC card, so it's going to be a banger. I mean, I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait.
To keep our bias 1 second where it needs to be, though, his man across the border. And that would be Billy Briz. So he's not actually from Ontario.
I got to give you credit, because the last time they had this Canada card, Cal walked onto this podcast and he said, I might be biased or I'm a winner. You can decide, and smacked a 4-leg all Canadian parlay. 2 dogs. Kyle Nelson was on there. Yep. Jasmine Vicious was on there. And the 2 chalk pieces were obvious. But Cal, like, that's probably like one of the highlights of the podcast from last year. Honestly,
it was a big one, man. It was fun that whole card was fun just to be a Canadian fan. Never mind Canadian better. Everybody wins, right? And then when you put a Canadian parlay together, or even are heavy on the Canadians, it's like you're always thinking like I'm so heavy on the Canadians, I'm probably gonna come out 50-50 or whatever else in your head or in the back of your mind. But it's like everybody cleaned up. So yeah, it'll be similar this week, man. I'm all pretty much Canadians this week as well, too. It is what it is, because it's pretty much a full Canadian card, and we lost a couple of the fights that weren't Canadian fights. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so Billy Briz comes across the border just to sort of cut our bias down and bring a little bit of more of a professional gambling edge. For me, I'm more of a breakdowns guy, an MMA guy, and that was more my angle on things. I like interviewing fighters and dissecting them and understanding how they're thinking. That benefits me in this as well too. But then, Billy coming in and sort of teaching me about bankroll management, teaching me properly about how to look at some fights and say, no, you got to stay off this line here. Attack it this way if you're going to attack it. There's certain things that you have to learn, right? So I look forward to learning from you as well too, proper MMA. Would you prefer me say Ben or proper MMA? Well, stick with proper, right?
Proper MMA, yeah.
All right. So we're going to actually let you start it off. It's your first day here at the Donttap podcast, so we're going to start it off with you. Bring your best spot to the table.
All right. Like you said, Canadian MMA, hard to stay away. I got my parlay, probably my biggest lock of the card. I got Jourdain moneyline and Mike Malott moneyline. And I'm sure, like you all said, y'all are going to be on them. But here's my 2 biggest things about this fight. I'll start with Jourdain first. Jourdain, Sean Woodson, I just can't get that performance against Luis Saldana out of my head. That draw, a couple fights ago, I know it's been a couple fights. He's had a couple wins. He's huge for the division, absolutely huge. But he has no ground game, absolutely none. Once he gets on his back, his legs are so long that he can't even get those heels onto the hips to push off. And you're going against a guy like Jourdain, who's so well-rounded. it's just so hard not to go with him. And he's in Toronto of his home crowd. I mean, I know he's from Quebec, but there's still going to be some home crowd advantages there. I just can't get the money line out of the price of the money line. Minus 186. I think he should be around minus 250. I do. And that's why I'm going to parlay him personally, because I think he's a lock. I think the odds don't reflect how the fight's going to play out. You could hit him individually for that price, but I'm going to add Mike Malott to make it plus 112. I mean, that's a pretty juicy parlay if you're getting plus odds on either of those fighters. I think it's a win-win. And then we go to our boy Mike Malott, who's, I think, more impressive than Charles Jourdain, honestly. And so far, I've been doing UFC bets, UFC caps for about 2.5 years now, and I've realized that the UFC set up certain fights, and we call them stepping stones. So Neil Magny is 36 years old. Neil Magny, they just keep feeding him monsters after monsters, and once you get to that like veteran cap or status in the UFC, it starts to become a stepping stone of like, hey, the older guy versus the younger guy. And that's pretty much what I see here. That's why I absolutely love this parlay at plus 112. I think, like I said, Jourdain should not be minus 186. But he should be at least minus 250 in my eyes. But I think you could easily see a finish out of both, too, if you want to take both by finish and add those, even increase those odds. I mean, I don't think it's a bad lock.
With the Jourdain one, I think you might be onto something with that. I mean, normally I'd be a little bit sketchier because he's shown poor fight IQ and not anymore. Yeah. And maybe not poor fight IQ. He just wanted to stand on the feet and bang and do what he loves doing that, right? So it was his choice to do that and play in maybe some fights that he shouldn't have. And but on the ground, playing so smart in his last fight, it just he showed such a level of fight IQ, and that's where you add value. That's where you're getting an extra minus 50 from me, on your money line. And go ahead.
My biggest concern of the reason why I think that line is the way that the line is because Charles Jourdain is a very slow starter historically. Not his last fight against Ricardo Ramos, he ended up locking up the guillotine. But I remember in years past, because I'm a big Charles Jourdain fan. Air Jourdain, you got me side. I'm on the boat. But he is a slow starter / he's going to be at a 10-inch reach disadvantage in this fight. And also a 3-inch height advantage for Sean Woodson's side. And I haven't been able to go into a Charles Jourdain like fight film to pull out a clip where he's not the bigger, stronger, longer guy. He usually gets the physical advantages in these matchups. If you told me Charles Jourdain wrestles in this fight, stone cold lock. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It's being in Canada. I can see dumb shit.
The one thing about the Jourdain matchup on the feet with Woodson, although there's a big distance there in the range, Woodson's a good hammer when he's doing well with his stand-up. But when he's actually having a little bit of a problem with the guy, he's pushing him on his back foot and bringing some chaos to him, he tends to not use his distance well. Some guys should be able to circle off properly with a nice counter hook, lead hook, and land that jab to keep people at bay. Use your leg kicks as well too. He tends to let guys close the distance and crack that jaw. We've seen it before. So I see where there's still a little bit more value on Jourdain. I think he's maybe a little bit overpriced at maybe a minus 250, but I think that where he's at right now, I'm sort of happy with it. And I think that he hits. I think he wins the fight. I think Woodson showed some weakness in the fight. So
I think you can't get that Luis Saldana performance out of your head with Sean Woodson got absolutely smoked. Like,
oh my God.
And that was on the Woodson side of it. Like when you're sweating a fighter and you develop this feeling about a fighter, I've been backing Woodson and sort of felt like sketchy at times. And I'm off that. When you have sketch on one side and you have Jourdain who's shown me a total different fighter in his last fight. And he has good jiu-jitsu, man. He has good jiu-jitsu. He hasn't had to show it. And I believe he has his black belt now. So
he does.
But yeah, so on to Mike Malott. I mean, we'll be talking about that one. I'm going to get into that one as well too, and we'll get into the breakdown on that. And obviously, I mean, Billy might even be bringing that to the table as well too. But I'll let Billy bring his next spot, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, this is what I would call a spot last year that you always have your red flag on. When you see big chalk on a women's favorite, you always have to ask yourself, why are they that big of a favorite? And man, it's hard for me not to pick Jasmine Jasudavicius in all the parlays against Priscilla Catch-A-Beating. Granted, Priscilla Catch-A-Beating might have some of the best hands at that division for women's, but we know what her biggest flaw is. She gets taken down by girls like Gina Manzani, for example. If the ref doesn't stand that up, that fight looks way completely different. But there's one thing that we know about Jasmine is she's going to go for takedowns. She has good cardio, and the girl can take a fucking punch. That Tracy Cortez fight showed she could take a punch. So when I start really thinking about it and we eliminate the male and female, I think Jasmine Jasudavicius is the stone cold, like, best favorite to parlay on the board for the Canada UFC 297 card, because I just don't see how does Priscilla Cachoeira win this fight. Does she win this by like a knockout hammer chance? This fight's the first fight of the night for a reason. I think they're trying to get Jazzy Jazz a finish here.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on there. There's two things that worry me, and it's women's MMA and big favorites in women's MMA. I got screwed on Casey O'Neill lately. That her last fight, I got absolutely banged. So it does scare me. I will say the one thing though, Cachoeira has one way to win this fight, and that is it, and it is by knockout. That is it. And I do think that is a possibility. Absolutely. The girl can bang, and Jasmine does. She is a dog. She can sit in the pocket and she can take beating, but I'm worried if she can't get this fight to the ground for whatever reason, or if this fight stays on the feet for longer than a round and a half, that -1, I think it's -370. Like, that is a pretty hefty. Yeah, that's pretty hefty. I can't lie. That is pretty hefty especially to start off the night.
Here's what I gotta tell you though. Gina Mazzani took down Priscilla Cachoeira 4 times. Right, so that's my first thing, and here's my angle. So this is when women's chalk MMA for me, and this is where, like, I know that everybody knows I'm completely biased. I talk to Coach Prickett on a regular basis. I'm biased to Niagara top teams. So if I plant my flag on any of them, if I stay off them, I stay off them because I feel it might be too sketchy to back, in the sense where I don't want to make people think I'm being a fanboy and tell them to bet on something. But when we look at Jasmine in this one, she takes down girls real easy. And another way she takes down girls too is when she starts to apply pressure, girls go to even take her down. I know that's not necessarily what Cachoeira's way is, but it's a reactive takedown. Yeah, and then she just gets that overhook on girls, takes their back, smushes them down into the canvas, and starts landing elbows. She has multiple ways to take girls down on the cage. She's just really fucking good. And she marches girls down. Like, she'll take shots, sure. I mean, it's obviously not the best thing, but she'll march through hell. Her striking's getting better and better with every camp, and she's sick of hearing that. Coach Prickett's sick of hearing that. He's like, she's a well-rounded fighter. She's not just a wrestler. But man, when you're that good at wrestling, like that whole team is wrestling heavy. It's all about defending takedowns. So they're one of the best at it. It's all about landing big takedowns and working that cage work. For
Cal,
me, I think she's going to get at least 3 or 4 takedowns in this. And here's my one thing I want to the little caveat here. Priscilla just gives up her neck. Priscilla just gives up everything. So here's my thing. Jasmine isn't a girl that's going to go fish and overcommit on a submission because she's more of a wrestler first. And she'd rather land elbows and have control and win a dominant decision, or get a girl out of there. But Cachoeira gives up her neck. She gives up fucking everything. She does it because she wants to get the way out. So I'm sorry, but so I'll tell you my first play, or one of my plays anyways here is I have Jasmine in a parlay with Mike Malott. It's -133, but I'm with it. And actually, I think both of them hit a sub. Unless Malott knocks Magny out, Magny's getting sub too. Magny's getting sub for sure. Like, Magny loves to get sub. 6 of his, and I'll go back and forth on these two right now. 6 of his 11 losses are by sub. Cachoeira gives up the next. So that's going to be a fun one I'm going to throw out there. That's going to be like my diehard MMA crazy big parlay sub, So yeah, for me, I mean, that's going to be one of my plays. It's actually going to be Malott and Jasmine Jasudavicius as a parlay, -133 on FanDuel. But I'm going to find ways for both of them to win. I'm probably going to be sprinkling props all over the place, like round 1, 2 for Malott. Looking at some subs as well too. So
Jasmine 3rd round sub, Priscilla being gassed.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
And honestly, boys, another play for this fight is I did some more digging into this fight. No distance, man. we just talked about it.
Yep.
She's gonna take her down. She's gonna beat her up. She's gonna get that sub. She exposes her neck, and Cachoeira's only way to victory is by a KO. So if you don't want to pay that minus 400 price tag for a women fighter, take the no distance. It's probably going to be around minus 200, minus 250. I'd probably throw it out. That's where I'd guess.
I can tell you right now, the props for this fight is going to be like plus 125 for Jasmine to win by decision. Jasmine to win by sub is probably going to be like 275, 300. And then her to win by Priscilla Cachoeira would be next on the prop thing. Her knockout prop is probably going to be like plus 375, plus 350. And then it would probably go Priscilla by decision. Then you're getting into like the plus 600 range.
500s, yeah.
Could it be a Jasmine?
So, I mean, I like the way you want to play it with the no decision. Like, I'm really seeing that sub. So if anybody sees value in that or wants to chase the big prop down the pile, like down to the TKO or whatever you want to do, you can do that. But then maybe take the no decision as sort of a caveat to help yourself too.
Exactly.
It never hurts. It's MMA. MMA is MMA. So it never hurts to back yourself up. And then if you end up cashing like you knew you were going to, you're going to double cash. So there's nothing wrong with that. Sort of patting yourself and backing yourself up.
Absolutely.
I'm going to come in with my first spot. I already put it out there in the last podcast. I'm going to fade the shit out of Sam Patterson. And I'm going to stick with it. The line hasn't really moved too much. Actually, it's moved in some books. Some books are starting to see the line move. But Johan Leonis is somebody who I've faded in the past because he's went up against him like Malott. Someone who's going to make him pay with takedowns. It wasn't necessarily Mike Malott's power that I thought was the edge in that fight. It was the fact that as soon as Johan with his Muay Thai was going to try to close the distance, he doesn't really have an answer to try to get in there and not get taken down. That's not really going to be what Patterson's game is. He's going to want to be long, rangy, kickbox a little bit, and he's going to get lit the fuck up. Both guys, typically right now, if you look at it, both their hit differential is like about a little over 2.5 that they're landing, and they're absorbing about 4. So both of them not really the greatest of scenarios. Johan's is more because of what Malott did to him. He sort of picked him apart from the outside and waited, and then finally, lands a big shot, lands the takedown and everything. So, but anyways, yeah, with Johan, I think the edge here in the value at minus 125 at Betway is the power. And I don't think Patterson is a good nail. He's just not. And I don't think that we need to even worry about what Johan's cardio is going to be like in round 3 because we're not getting there. I just don't see us getting there. There's certain guys you see how they react when they take punches. Patterson at this level is not reacting while they're taking punches. So I'm with the money line on this. I may sprinkle a little something else on it, but I'm good with the money line. You know, that'll be one of my plays. I like to find a money line where I see an edge, and I think Johan has the power to put Patterson out early. If you want to play 1 or 2 or go with a KO on you, but I like the money line.
It's funny you mentioned that because that's my third lock. So I actually ride with the no distance. I see Johan getting an easy KO in the first or second round, and if it goes late, I could see his gas tank somewhat being drained. That's why I like the no distance. I've backed Linus before many times. I think I'm actually perfect record with betting on his fights. So that's why I like the no distance here. Sam Patterson is also moving up to welterweight. So he's also moving up a division. His last fight at 155 got canceled against Nasrat Haqparast because of health issues. And it was a late cancellation. So I'm assuming he couldn't make that weight. He's also like 6'3", trying to make 155. So it's not happening. So I think personally, whenever we see another fighter move up in weight, it's never a great look. It's just not like it's not going to pan out for you well. It's just a massive change when you move up in weight classes. It doesn't matter which weight class, any of them when you move up is just a tough change. And he's honestly one of the most awkward fighters I've ever seen in the UFC. The way he strikes, the way he dips his head, the way he reaches for feints, it's rough. So even on the Contender Series, I was stunned that he won. I was stunned that he even got into the UFC. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My bet would be the no distance or Linus by KO.
I can't agree anymore with proper MMA picks. I actually like the under 2.5. I think the biggest discrepancy, the reason why the line is so close is while we haven't been able to like really see it on the regional scene, watching the film for his Contender Series fight and then the Contender Series fight, bro, Sam Patterson has a legit submission game. Johan Leonis, when he goes to the ground, bro, it's like he's a fish out of water, bro, and he just doesn't know how to defend submissions. Granted, like we only seen him get submitted in that last fight against Mike Malott, but you remember going into that fight week, the whole entire week, we knew Mike Mallet was going to win by sub. Like, it was pretty obvious that he was going to win by sub. And I can't take those memories out of my head, man. I mean, if you look at Lionesse's like other fights, they're kind of like favored for him to like go into a swing and bang type of regional scene fight, give the people what they paid for. But this isn't one of those type of fights. I think this fight's pretty even. I think while Lioness has a huge power advantage on Sam's biggest flaw, which is his chin, I think there's a huge discrepancy. I think the bigger discrepancy is the submission game of Sam Patterson on Johan Lioness. And common sense says if you're getting punched in the face, you're probably going to pull guard. And if you're pulling guard and this shit hits the ground, I think all bets are off. This shit goes straight back.
You just gave me my minus 125. Thank you. I was going to end that off for you because the only thing is you can't afford to get punched in the face by Johan. If you look at Mike barely took anything that was clean from Johan because he knew if he took anything clean from him, that guy has lights out, touches you, you're out. So I just think that the guy who's a horrible nail that maybe even my daughter might be able to throw a nice hook to and crack that chin. I honestly, like, I get what you're saying with the sub thing. It's just that's like two or three steps away from the potential KO, right? Like we got to get there first. And I just don't know if he can. So I'll take the minus 125, but I do respect and see the angle. So it may have talked some people off of the line, and that's cool because you want to be able to see all sides and see where it's at. So
exactly.
I will proper MMA if you want to bring your next pick.
Yeah, quick one thing just to touch on that no distance. I'm assuming it's probably gonna be like a minus 350 favorite. That was my third lock was pairing that with Jasmine Jasdavicius money line. So that was the other one that I had touched on. If you don't want to pay that price tag or sweat it out, I don't think that fight goes the distance. But number 3 for me, we're going back to women's MMA, which is iffy for me. Another Canadian, and that's Jillian Robertson. Jillian Robertson money line at minus 172 over Polyana Viana. I think she gets this done very easily. I think it's a great stylistic matchup for her. You're getting Polyana Viana, who always looks to take this to the ground. Arguably one of the best BJJ women out there, but Jillian Robertson, her last 2 or 3 fights, she is a monster. I don't know what she's been doing, changing camp wise.
Dean Thomas's strategy, man. I'm sorry. So Dean Thomas's strategy is normally it's position before submission. She doesn't play that game. She goes for that neck right away. She goes for the arm right away. And if she's not on it, but she gets up like she goes right to it.
Right to that Goat Shed MMA down there in Miami, Florida. If you ever seen their Instagram clips before, Goat Shed MMA, it's one of the wildest fucking gyms. I think the owner of the gym owns the karate combat shit that you always see for UFC Fight Pass. Bro, some of their gym sessions are absurd. Like, we're talking about no pads, like it's a straight UFC fight, and that's probably where she's kind of got like this no fucking attitude from.
Yeah, absolutely. She's just a badass. I mean, her at minus 172 against Polyana Viana, who I think is literally going to put herself into those submission attempts and positions because that's her first nature. That's what she knows. I think Jillian Robertson smokes her. I think it's not even close. I think we see either a round 1, round 2 submission, and she gets it done. If you guys want to play her by submission as well, I know Callum, you're probably on that as well with the whole 2 other Jasmine and Mike. You could throw 3 of those Canadians for subs.
Dude,
in a parlay.
all the Canadian degens right now are like they're building the submission Canadian
they're
submission parlay.
They're all on their bed. They're all on FanDuel. They're all on their sports books right now, trying to see if the lines are up. That's great.
All right, Billy, what is your next spot you want to bring to the table? Unless you want to continue on Jillian. You want to talk about Jillian?
No, that fight is and by sub for me. 2 girls, really good submission upside. And by sub is probably going to be like plus 275 or something like that.
Yeah,
that might be the way I go because, man, as much as I love Jillian Robertson, this is where we start playing into the factor of like she's fucking hot, man. Like her Instagram and all that, like in the pictures. It's hard.
And she's the most leading you like that.
It's no way I can't double tap on the pictures. So it's like
so you don't know if you're clouded vision. You have clouded vision right now. And you don't. You don't want to be a simp.
Yeah, I'm a simp for Jillian Robinson. So I try not to bet her fights anymore.
That's fair. I get that.
The women's MMA fight that I wanted to talk about, though, while everybody's looking at the main event for a title fight, we got another title fight on this card. UFC vacant bantamweight championship here. The former Amanda Nunes will never leave the division belt. We got Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Buena Silva. And everybody talks about USADA and stuff, how it helped out Conor McGregor. I think it helped out Mayra Buena Silva the most because she almost caught a 1.5-year suspension off of her Holly Holm fight where she tested positive for PEDs. Now we don't have USADA in the picture. The UFC still pushed her towards a co-main event on the first card of the year and a vacant title fight against Raquel Pennington. Pennington's one of the familiar faces that you'll know in the division. She's on a great win streak herself. She's on a 5-fight win streak, so she deserves this spot. I think there's a huge striking advantage for speed, not like technique. There's a huge speed advantage, and I think Buena Silva has the submission finishing ability advantage. So I'm getting the fighter that has the more finishing ability, the faster fighter, the younger fighter, the fighter that is probably on steroids still. And I think it's under -200 for a reason. People don't like betting MMA. If you told me all those factors, I think this line should be like 245, 250, but that's not what we're seeing. -185 or Mayra Buena Silva on the co-main event is a spot that I want to attack.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Billy, to be honest. And earlier, I know I talked about stepping stones. This is another one of those. You just said it. Mayra Buena Silva's on the incline and Pennington is on the decline. So that is another stepping stone for me. I had Mayra Buena Silva beating Holly Holm, huge dog. I think it was like 250 plus 300. I'd love to cash that. And I think she gets it done easily. Raquel Pennington makes fights close when it's literally a boxing match, kickboxing match, and even her leg kicks, they're not that impressive. They're kind of just taps, and they're not going to do some serious damage. If Mayra Buena Silva, just for whatever reason, decides not to take this to the feet or to the ground, I could see it being closer, but she's gonna get a body lock up against the cage and take her down, and I think that's gonna be the fight. I think you see a finish, honestly.
So guys, I here's the only thing, and the reason why this fight's a stay off for me. Because I do see the value in Silva now. I think that her edge in this fight is her explosiveness and her power. I think in her submission game, that's where it's an advantage with Pennington, because you can't just sort of sit in with Pennington. But look at Pennington's last 5 fights: Vieira, Ladd, Chiasson, Kianzad, and Renault. All wins, 5-fight winning streak.
Impressive.
Someone that was death taxes and Pennington by decision. So for me, I do see how it sort of feels like a setup spot. 100%. It's more like, is Pennington going to finally do it? But you know what? If she doesn't, we have this girl that's going to come in explosive, and this is sort of a stepping stone for her as well too. But man, I don't know. For me, it's a stay off just because there's so much ROI over here for me with Pennington. I can't go against her on the other side of it and then get beat. That would just kill me. So that's why it's a stay off for me. But I do see it in Silva. I love her on Instagram. I love how aggressive she is. So she's like, I know nobody's interested in our fight, but I'm going to make it interesting. Like, I love this girl. Good on the mic. She's good how she talks. And yeah, she's maybe a younger, better version, more explosive version, more of a finisher than Pennington is. So I definitely see the side on it, regardless of, me talking about,
well, if you want to go down
edge or the winning streak, but for me, it's a stay off.
If you want to go down the greasy narrative route, the UFC used to be a big staple in Brazil. Since then, they haven't had as many Brazilian champions, hence why Pantoja got a rematch against Brandon Royval, which is on paper a very winnable fight for him if he already beat him inside the distance before. So now you have an opportunity to give a female champion from Brazil the belt. On top of that, the bitch just got suspended from the Holly Holm fight. She was about to catch like a 1.5-year suspension. Now the magical USADA just disappears, and now she's in a title fight. I don't know.
There was a couple of advantageous situations there, wasn't there?
Like they're really helped. Like everybody said, it's helping Conor McGregor out. Nah, it helped out Mayra Buena Silva. She was about to be on the sidelines on Instagram talking about, "I'm sorry for the fans. I didn't know what I was saying." Blah blah blah. Well, swipe it away. Here you go. Here's your title shot.
I will not let you guys talk me onto a Silva side, but I fully 100% see the value in it. I'm staying off it, but 100% I can see her finishing this fight.
Fucked fight. Like usually when somebody comes off of USADA suspension or something like that, they get a fucked up fight or a fight that's not winnable unless it's their UFC debut and your name is Josh Quinlan. Other than that, every other time you come back from USADA suspension, you get in a tough fight from the.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the line decision no bet. You guys familiar with that one?
Yes.
Or I think Myra Bueno Silva decision no bet is a fantastic line here. It covers it basically what
So
happens
you're
in.
talking me into it.
Pardon?
Go ahead. You guys are
I'm still
talking
getting
me into
there.
it.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
my deal is with this fight is I need plus money. I need plus money somewhere. I will not bet this fight at Bueno Silva line minus whatever 170. Decision no, but the way it works, Myra Bueno Silva gets the finish, your bet cashes. It goes the distance, it's a void. The only way you lose that bet is if Raquel Pennington somehow finishes Myra Bueno Silva.
Who's more of a decision woman, so I like it. Keep talking.
Exactly. Who decisionator. I think that's the only way that Raquel Pennington wins is by
What's the
decision.
line sitting at right now? Or I guess the line won't be sitting out there yet. Yeah,
But
see what the value is on it.
It's usually a little bit more above the money line. So
you guys present angles and then you give me value. Fuck you both. I'm trying to stay off this one. I told myself I would stay off this one.
Listen, I just don't want to lose you boys money. It's like I just want to make sure we're all profiting.
That seems like a nice value.
This is the rare.
I know that like there'll be like a line around there, but I can already see what it's probably going to be, and that seems like it makes sense.
Yeah.
This is a rare time that you could say the women's MMA fights on this UFC 297 cards are the money fights.
Dude,
like
they're actual bangers. Like I can't lie. Like usually women's MMA is pretty trash. Can't lie. Lately, especially the last 6 months, like they've been kicking up. Like even every top 5 in every division. Like I'm watching it. It's a great fight.
I agree. And on top of that, the 3 fights that we have for women's MMA on this card, usually like Proper was talking about, you kind of don't know what's going to happen in women's MMA fight. But these are all like pretty clear cut. Like if this fighter does this a certain way, this ain't gonna work. Like for example, Raquel Pennington, her main thing is pushing people up against the cage. Bro, she does that shit against Myra Bueno Silva. Myra Bueno Silva is gonna do the same exact thing that she did against Holly Holm, reverse the position, and then throw up a submission.
Yeah, she's gonna get the body. She's gonna get the body lock. If Raquel Pennington does that, she's gonna reverse position, get the body lock, and sweep her legs out. She's gonna be on her back. That's exactly every time.
Okay, I'm gonna bring my next spot to the table. So this fight's already happened. It's somebody who's my prospect pretty much to watch of the year. It's somebody who I believe has stand-up that's just it's high level, man. Like he's just good at picking you apart. You know, in their first fights, we'll talk about it. Series City against Ramon Tavares on Dana White Contender Series. You know, Siri trains down the street, not too far from here, and this kid just has a measured pressure about him. And I always use this to describe him because it's just the best way to do it. He's able to just stay on you, make you tired if it's going to run a little bit later, and then just find his spot and land. But he's able to just stay outside the pocket. You think people are landing on him, they're just sort of grazing off of him, and then he sets up his shots, and when he lands, he puts you out, he drops you. And sure, I know on the Dana White Contender Series, it's sort of ironic for me to say that it's an early stoppage. I think he knows, his coaches know it's an early stoppage, but he doesn't give a shit. He dropped the guy, he went in there and did what he was supposed to do. That's it. So he's like, all right, let's double down. So now you're going to give me him at minus 175. I get it. It's a little bit chalked for a guy making a debut in Toronto under the bright lights and everything else. But he's got his full team with him. He's got everybody with him to insulate him. He has the same mental coach as Mike Malott. These are all the little things that I'm in tune with. I'm telling you right now, this kid is mentally strong. He's ironclad. He's going to go in and do exactly what he did in the last fight. I'll take him at money line at minus 175. And then I will take him again. And then you get that at bet online. And I will take him again, likely inside the distance in some way. He could get a sub in a club and sub situation because he does have a good ground game that we haven't seen yet. But he just finishes guys with his hands. He lands beautiful counters. His lead hook is just fucking beautiful. Just so measured with his striking and just so intelligent in there. He's got Lyndon Whitlock in his corner. So for me, man, just give me Series City. Yeah, man. And BTC is actually where he does his training in Burlington for, I believe, a lot of his submission game is done out of there. So for me, yeah, I just think minus 175 is a no-brainer. He's already done it. He's already beaten the kid. Although Ramon does bring, let me actually at least justify it a little bit. Ramon does bring some boxing. Ramon does bring that power, but it sort of plays into City's hands to be able to sort of pick him apart the same way. Dance around the outside, let the guy overcommit, and whether he lands a takedown and finishes him a different way. I could even see a rear naked choke in this one. It's something that just runs out to me because I was trying to break down how this could finish. But yeah, I think City inside the distance, but I'll take money line at 175. He cracks that jaw again, and Ramon drops. That's it.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more, Callum. To be honest, he's the younger fighter. He's the bigger fighter. He's already won this fight. I think it's a no-brainer. I'm honestly surprised it's not like minus 220, 240 around there, because it's already happened and people have already seen it and they kind of see the outcome already. Yeah, it's simple. Like you just said, you broke it down perfectly. Money line, make it simple. You don't need to get too touchy with this one. You don't need to throw a prop out there. Money line, that's it.
Yep, I like it money line too. Like I said, it's not necessarily even putting a play out that the inside the distance. I'll probably sprinkle it myself, but the play officially is the minus 175. I just think I thought it was going to be about minus 200. I thought, he finishes the guy in the last fight not that long ago. Showed that there was a little bit of a differential in the stand-up. I just figured that the line would be a little bit wider. It will be by fight day, I think.
It will be. It will be. All of these lines that we talk about are going to be more. I think Charles Jourdain is going to be minus like 215. I think Mike Malot's going to be minus 300. So if you're listening now, hop on these lines early. I know some of the prop lines aren't available yet, but grab those money lines now. I always lock my bets in Monday, Tuesdays. If I'm for sure, I usually like to wait till Fridays after weigh-ins, because if I get canceled, you have a fighter that just doesn't look good or didn't shed the weight properly. But in these cases, lock them in.
And Billy, what are your thoughts on that one?
My thoughts are I'm glad that we're doing this podcast so early, because I think that the UFC 297 card is just like, I'm seeing that card so clearly when it comes to like fighters that we've already bet on in the past, guys that we backed on the Contender Series or faded before. Like, we have that set of fighters. We have Mike Mallet on the fucking card. Mike Mallet's been our guy. Shouts to Cal for that one. And then we have the women's MMA fights. So then when I really start looking at it from like a hindsight, broad view perspective, I don't think I need to go that hard on this upcoming weekend card, because, we haven't had MMA in so long. I feel like bettors get into a mindset of like, oh, we got to make up the money for missed time. And to be honest with you, this card is so much better of like an offering of like, I feel like I know it's going to happen. And very rarely do you walk inside a UFC card that you feel like it's going to happen. We all kind of know what the promotion wants and stuff like that. And I just don't feel the same exact way for that Vegas card. That Vegas card, there's a lot of unknowns, even with the certainty of certain favorites. Like, as much as I love Marcus McGee, we don't know if he's cashed or not at this point of the episode, but I feel a lot better with Jasper Jazovic at minus 400. That's like a prime example.
Yeah, I can agree with
that. Man, that sub, I'm interested to see if that is around 250, 275. It might even be more. And if it is, I'm like definitely gonna be excited about that one. But I think there's gonna be a bunch of subs. That seemed to be the theme of a lot of the fight picks that we went through. There seems to be a lot of subs there. Jillian is a sub. Malott is a potential sub. I think he's going to sub him out of there. But, Jasmine has an opportunity as well, too, just because Catchware just gives up her neck and gives up, positions. So definitely interesting.
Main event, man. Sean Strickland versus Dracus Duplessis. The reason why is buying the pay-per-view. I think that there's going to be a changing of a guard in Canada. Granted, I love Sean Strickland. I love his fighting style. I've made a lot of money on Sean Strickland in the past. But I'm telling you, man, the way that he fights is not a good fighting style against Dracus Duplessis. So Sean Strickland, we all know how he likes to fight. He has his hands down, kind of like, to be honest with you, like the best way to describe it is like the white boy version of like the Philly shell style of like a Bobby Green or something like that. Like he's going in, he ain't as fast as like Bobby Green and them doing the Philly shell style, but he's going to go in there Philly shell style. And that Philly shell style leaves you a lot of like openings. So usually when somebody goes in forward on Sean Strickland, he ends up like counter punching or throwing a leg kick, kind of like Adesanya was trying to lunge forward, but he kept on getting neutralized. I don't think that's the same case with Dracus Duplessis. Dracus Duplessis, you talk about go for broke or not fix it, man, or decision no bet. Dracus Duplessis is the definition of that fighter. It doesn't matter who's across the cage. It doesn't matter who it is, what the circumstances are, what their win streak is. He's going to go forward. And when he goes forward, he's going to land. And I just feel like Sean Strickland in his training sessions, he might be able to, get the same exact type of feel. We thought the Jared Cannonier fight, we thought Jared Cannonier was going to go forward. He didn't. We thought the Abus Magomedov fight, he was going to go forward. He didn't. Adesanya, same exact thing. There's one thing for certain I know in this fight is Dricus Duplessis is going to go forward. And when he goes forward, it might be the demise to him, but it also might be the shit that he gets off that lucky punch. Because the Robert Whittaker fight, everybody was talking about the way Dricus Duplessis go forward. He's going to get counterpunched or take it down to the ground. And what happened? He ended up going forward, landing, and knocking the dude out, where the dude took the punch and he was like, oh shit, I ain't feel nothing like this. And he went right to the ground. I feel like without the narratives involved in this, when I think about the stylistic styles of these fights, Duplessis has the wrestling to be able to take it to the ground. I favor him in the wrestling exchanges. I favor him in the striking exchanges. And I think he's 10 times faster than Sean Strickland. The only way Sean Strickland wins this fight is by having better fight IQ. I think he'll be able to control his gas tank in here, and I think he's going to be able to knock out the champion, Sean Strickland. We haven't seen Strickland get knocked out, but I think this is the one here. I think Duplessis finds the chin, and Dana White gets his coveted walk off to the sunset. How many more interviews is Dana White going to talk about? I want UFC Africa. I want UFC Africa. I want UFC. And then you start reading Israel Adesanya.
begins.
You're going to see me sooner rather than later. I said I'm taking a year or 2 years off. Well, actually, incorrect. I'm going to be back sooner rather than later. I'm not going to tell you who the opponent is because you know why? The opponent's about to be Dricus Duplessis after he knocks out Sean Strickland. My hot take for the card. But Duplessis.
Go ahead,
Billy, I can agree with absolutely most of the things you said. This is going to be the first time that we disagree. This is going to be the first, and I will tell you why really, really quick. First 5-round fight for Dricus Duplessis in his career.
He fought 5 rounds overseas.
If you guys do remember the Darren Till fight, that got real sloppy real quick. And there's one thing that Sean Strickland does have, and it's a gas tank. It's a gas tank, and he's a tricky fighter. I haven't seen Sean Strickland on his back. Mind you, he hasn't fought too many guys that would put him on his back, but I haven't seen him on his back yet. And everyone talks about Sean Strickland's wrestling and how he never uses it and how it's so good. I think your prediction, Billy, is bang on for the first 2.5 rounds. The second the third round, fourth round, fifth round starts, I think Dricus will be like,
bet.
I think
Sean Strickland was maybe taking some shots. I
think Dricus could slow down. Like you said, his game plan is going to be absolutely to just run through Sean Strickland. But if you can't get him out early enough, and that game plan decides, he starts switching it up after around 2.5. It's a live bet for me. Callum just said it perfectly. I have it highlighted in my notes. Live bet. Because I think Sean's going to drop the first 2. He's either going to get wrestled, he's going to get clipped, he's going to get outpaced. People are like, oh, here we go. Here's the finish. Sean's a tricky guy to finish. He's a very, very tricky guy to finish. And I'm
glad you guys are on either side of this because I'm a stay off, and there's no way you can talk me onto it now.
I'm the stay off too. I'm a stay off too. I'm a live bet, but strictly live bet.
Here's why, and I sort of see some of what Billy's talking about. So the one thing about Strickland is dealing with power punches isn't really been a really good work for him with Cannonier and then with Pereira. The thing about Duplessis that he does really well, he steps into distance, creates space with big hooks. So it's similar to the way Malat does. He actually closes distance pretty well, and that's what he did well in his last fight. And was able to actually pressure Whittaker and land on Whittaker and not really respect Whittaker. He was landing some big shots, creating nice space in the pocket and landing big hooks, and Whittaker was like overwhelmed with it, didn't know what to do with it. So I just think that if Sean, I think you're 100. I think this is a perfect way to break it down. I think I really see the value in Duplessis, but at the same time, if it does stretch over, Sean's just going to start to take over on it. And at the same time, it's like that's why it's a stay off for me because I could see Strickland just do a 5-rounder, just pick this guy apart and slowly take the lead out of his punches and work, just a distance game the same way he did with Adesanya. But it's going to be up to Duplessis to play that game. He's going to have to go play that game. And just come forward, and that's the way he wins the fight because he can't let Sean allocate the pressure. If Sean does, it's game over for him. A takedown may be the play, but my only thing is you are right, and that there's a lot of people, like some high level fighters have said, like he is fucking really good on the ground.
Yeah.
So if that mythical, like here's the thing, if you're ever gonna see him bring that out, it's when he wants to hold on to the belt. And this dude wants to hold on to the belt.
Yes.
He's tasted that money. I don't care what he says about his Prius or whatever the fuck he drives.
Doesn't matter, bro.
He doesn't want to let go of the belt. So if he has the belt, he's going to do whatever he has to do. That mythical grappling Sean Strickland is out there, and that sort of scares me as well too. There's multiple factors in this, but when I was looking at it, the fact that I found myself almost on the Duplessis side of things definitely made me stay off for it.
Yeah.
But I fully, Billy, I see what you're saying. I was more going into it with the Strickland side of things though, and then when I find myself on the other side, I got to step away.
I got to shout out to boss man Jeff Slaughter at Pub Sports Radio, man. When Jeff's giving me a lot of like betting nuggets, so they'll give you a quick synopsis. I was a college daily fantasy player, and Jeff got me on the Pub Sports Radio and basically allowed my senior year of college to be like a do content but learn betting like fully inside and out. And one of the things that he's always said to me is some of the best bets that you'll make are the ones that you didn't want to press the button on. And that's the theme of Dracus Duplessis. His whole entire UFC career has been like when I look at Duplessis and I have all these things on my bet history about Duplessis money line, the under, Duplessis money line, the under. And I just feel like certain fights I'm betting into the certainty. So I can see the scariness, the reason why it's a pick 'em, because you're betting into a lot of uncertainty on either side. Like if you're betting on the Sean Strickland side, you probably get a better live line, to be honest with you.
The dude beat Robert Whitaker, and that's my thing. That's what fucks me up, right? So no one saw that coming. That's probably the upset of the year, right? So the fact that you're so heavy on Whitaker, I saw 17 angles for Whitaker. He was in everybody's parlay, and that was a legitimate lock for me. There was no fucking chance that Duplessis was going to beat him, and he did, and he broke him. So for me, that's why he's a mythical. He's also a mythical character, and I don't know what to do with it. It leaves me sort of dumbfounded as to how this breaks down. I had more of a handle on the Adesanya fight and the breakdown with Strickland than I would on this one. So
yeah, I would agree with you. I can't pick a side. It's a void for me. The one thing that scares me is Sean Strickland's his last loss by finish was in 2018 by Zaleski dos Santos. He's just not an easy guy to finish. And once you get to those later rounds, if you don't have a gas tank, it could be a problem. So that's why I'm a straight void. If it gets to round 2 or 3 and I start seeing the tide shift a little bit, it might be a live bet on Sean Strickland. But outside of that, it's a void for me. And I'm glad we got to really break down each side of it and have, Callum and Billy, love both your points. It made me more confident on a void, to be honest.
The Sean Strickland, like when this fight first got announced, I thought it was just another Sean Strickland auto bet. But with Sean Strickland, I feel like this mythical legend about Sean Strickland could just come to an end, man. Like if you look at some of the all right, granted, we knock out the Adesanya fight. The Adesanya fight was one of the greatest performances of last year in general. The way he went about the fight IQ, the game plan, everything miraculous. But if you eliminate that, man, Abus Magomedov is not that good, in my opinion. I was fading him in the PFL days. Nazarene Imanov, he's 15-20, not really 5-1 in my eyes. And then, I don't know. I feel like Sean Strickland wins the fights that he's supposed to win, but the fights that are there
is an element of what you're saying. Like Sean talked himself into that title shot on the Joe Rogan podcast. They were sort of talking about it, and then Adesanya answered after that. Talked a whole bunch of shit, and he was sort of already there, like he was the next guy potentially, but he talked himself into that shot, and talked Duplessis out of his. So now, we could go back and forth probably all day long on this one. But I know we found a bunch of different spots, a bunch of different angles. But quickly, we're all going to pick one person. I know we put out our sort of our own little parlays and whatever else, but we're going to make a 3-piece for the 3 of us. So, and the 3-piece could be fight no distance, whatever else, and do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, just like the MMA.
I'm going to let you have Jasmine. You're going Jasmine Jasnovicis, I would imagine, over there, Billy. So I'll just take I'll take Malat. You go Jasmine, and then what are you doing there, proper?
We need plus monies for the last leg here. We got it.
I want to do a fight no distance, right? Wasn't there a fight no distance that we had that was a solid one?
You know what? I'll throw that in there because I was gonna make it an all Canadian parlay, but I
Oh,
won't.
no. Go ahead. Do what you want to do. Do your thing.
I like all Canadian odds.
You like all Canadian odds? Give me Charles Jourdain. Charles Jourdain money line against Sean Woodson. Easy money.
Okay. So we'll go Jourdain, Jasmine, and Malott will be the actual Don't Tap parlay, and then I'll put out some of my plays. You guys, if you want to just send me your plays again, or if you put tag me or whatever in your post,
we switch around,
and then I'll put that up.
Odds come out, and we switch out how like we put out like the pre-podcast picks. I think we could also do like the Instagram post with propers last leg, because that leg probably won't be available until like 2.5 weeks or out from now.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We can only speculate for now, and then but yeah, no, I think we found enough spots, and I will put out what we can, and then maybe I will do another little quick recap beforehand. I'm gonna try to get a couple fighters on. It's a difficult time. All the gyms are busy right now. Everything's starting to ramp up around here, so all the gyms are busy. There's seminars popping off everywhere now already.
Can you talk to the people a little bit about the couch versus coach idea? Because I didn't know if that was like coaches or like, do you want like regional scene fighters? Because regional scene fighters.
No, I'm down with all. We're going with all of that. So regional scene fighters.
Regional scene fighters.
I have a couple around here that will be down for it.
Biggest gamblers that I know.
100%.
Because you got to think about it. You're not working a regular job. You're a fighter. You have all this information about fights, but you're not a professional yet where you can't not bet on the fights. Man, these regional scene fighters, shouts to I got to give you my boy Aaron Reese, man, over down there in what's that, New Mexico gym? They used to be really good, but then it faded off. Fuck, man.
What, Jackson's?
Jackson Wink MMA. He was in the Jackson Wink MMA rooms back in the day with like Patchy Mix, Saeed Kakramanov. Like, he's giving me so many tidbits for like certain fighters and like certain stuff. Nick Argueta was in that camp. Like, those old Jackson Wink stories and stuff like that. Like, that's like an example of like some of these regional scene fighters. Sometimes they're just not good enough to go to the next level, but they got the information. And all we want is the information.
And they're training every day with some of the best fighters in the world, right? So, and some of them are just about to crack. Like, we might even have Siri City on as well too. I know I'm gonna have him on the podcast to talk to him about his fight coming up, but we may have him on more regularly doing breakdowns as well too. So, yeah, definitely regional fighters, pros at the highest level, and then also coaches as well too, even promoters.
And we got to get Miss Dina on for the UFC Atlantic City card. We got to get Miss Dina on. Miss Dina is the wife of Aaron Blanchfield's striking coach that lives in New Jersey. And man, that camp has given me so many tidbits of like, Blanchfield's been working on her striking. It's going to look a lot better this fight. Make sure you get your little bet on there. And her other teammate, Fatima Klein, I think her name is, Aaron Blanchfield's main training partner. She's a fight away from getting inside the UFC. So we got to definitely bring on like a little bit of combination of like all three of our connections to like, I feel like the people would just enjoy like the different aspects of like MMA broken down from like, because from a better standpoint, your job is just to get the most information possible and use it. But the ways we get those information in UFC is in MMA is way different from any other sport. Like NBA, NFL, just go on Twitter and just find out the information. Like MMA, bro, it's like going down a fucking rabbit hole. You got to hit up so-and-so. It's crazy, but
it's gritty.
Get that information, I think it's the most valuable to more than any other sport.
And on that information, actually, I'm going to be sitting down with Mike Malott as well too. And I'm going to do it like before he fought Johan, I pretty much he led me right down the path of where the fight was going to finish, when the fight was going to finish without telling me directly. So we're going to do that again. I'm going to break that down with him and see if we can get a sniff. The idea is really it's going to be a sub. I just see it. Yeah. It's going to be a sub.
That was one of my favorite interviews. You asked him like, so are you going for a sub in round 2? You know, whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to let the first 5 minutes go and, fill out my opponent. And then we end up cashing all the Mike Malott tickets. I made mad money on that fight. I remember I made more money off of that one fight alone than I did off the whole entire card.